Hey podcast listener, you are tuned in to the Quantified Web podcast, the show where we talk everything web data, metrics and analytics and how you can improve your website through a data-driven approach. If you want to know more about this podcast, all the things we talk about, head over to quantifiedweb.com. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Quantified Web podcast. My name is Julian and today I want to talk about learning digital analytics. And since I don't have a guest on this episode, I just wanted to start the show with a little bit of a thanks to all the listeners who still stick around. We are on episode 15 right now. It means I roughly did this podcast for 3 months. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but I hope you stick around and listen to the show. Maybe even go to iTunes and leave a review. Yeah, thank you for sticking around. The 15th episode. Most of the podcasts I started haven't made it to the 3rd episode, so that's a big step. I want to continue doing this. I want to bring you still everything about web data and analytics on a weekly basis, and I've tried to keep it up. That said, it's not always possible for me to get a guest on that is good and high quality, and this episode is actually one episode that I want to just talk about how to learn analytics rather than to talk to a guest. But next week I already have an interview lined up, and hope you stick around and listen to the next episode. Thanks. Okay, let's dive right into today's topic, which is learning digital analytics. So I came up with this topic because sometimes young folks, I would consider myself young too, but young folks ask me like, how do I get into analytics? And how can I learn more about analytics, and what are actually the steps to take to get to my level or to a better understanding of numbers and be more data driven in an organization? And it's not an easy answer. Like also when I started to gain interest in analytics, that was actually when I wrote my bachelor thesis on web analytics for content-driven websites. I stumbled upon not very good books and a lot of definitions out there. The industry is certainly still evolving, and it's very, very interesting to see all the cool stuff that is out there. But I want to paint a little bit of a path for somebody who is like really new, starting out, maybe has some experience in online marketing already, but wants to really deep dive into digital analytics, web analytics, and everything that's surrounding by that. First point I want to make here is read, look, or listen up. So as everybody knows, the internet has brought us a lot of education. Basically, you can find any topic that you want on the internet and read up about it. And sometimes it's hard to filter. So I want to, the first step in learning digital analytics, it's actually just look at the resources out there that are already available on the internet. And first that come to mind, because I just went through the course, is the free analytics academy at Google. So they have 2 basic courses out there right now, which is digital analytics fundamentals and the platform courses, I think. And these are just very well made videos with Justin Cotronian with a multiple choice test beneath that, and you can just get a very, very basic and good understanding of analytics in general, and then the platform goes more into Google Analytics. Obviously that's then tool specific, but that's a very good starting point. If somebody asks me where should I start learning analytics, this is usually the first thing, because they're very well made. The videos are very well made, and the understanding that you get is very basic. And for me, it helped me to again get a very, very smooth transition into the basics of analytics. What is it all about? And that's how I also communicate it to my clients. So look that up, the Analytics Academy by Google. Second thing, if you're more into reading, then of course read some books about it. And the books that I can recommend is definitely the Advanced Web Metrics with Google Analytics by Brian Clifton. He gave me more the understanding of Google Analytics as a tool. What is actually the advanced stuff that I can do in Google Analytics, and not just the basics of like tracking web pages. That was very important to me. Google Analytics by Justin Cutrone is a very good book. Avinash Kaushik has a more holistic approach to online or digital analytics. So you might want to look up his books. If you take these authors, you also have a very, very concise list of people you can follow on Twitter or Google+. Avinash, Justin Cutrone, Jim Stern, Nick Mihalowski, Eric Peterson, Brian Clifton. All these guys have their own blogs, their own Twitter presence, their Google Plus profiles, and so on. So look them up and maybe follow them, so you'll also be at the heartbeat of the analytics evolvement that we are all going through. And if you're more on the visual side, there are definitely opportunities out there, like companies that sprung up in the last years, which is like something like Skillshare or Udemy, which provide like video courses where experts can actually put in their video course. There are a lot of professors on there who teach people specific skill sets, and you can find courses like digital analytics there. Also introductions to very specific tools like Google Analytics. If you want to have something a little bit more official, a little bit more serious, then I can recommend the courses of lynda.com. They get people in and hire them to do a course for them. Or the company from Avinash Kaushik, Market Motive, which helps people in online marketing, but has also a certified course on digital analytics, which he teaches. And if you're more on the life side, then attend a course. So there are training companies out there like Lunametrics does trainings, but also Enor, which do live trainings for getting into analytics. And if that is the money worth to you, and especially if it's something that you need for your job, then you might want to check that out. And if you want to make it highly, highly official, if you have a background in statistics or study something like that, there are always programs at universities where you can actually go in and learn about analytics. There are different programs. I saw so many different programs, especially in the US, that pick up the trend pretty well about big data and so on, where you can have electives that go into that direction. So there's definitely not a shortage of opportunities to get started with free material, with paid material, from studying from home, with visiting a course, a live course, or even commit to it full time and study about it in university. Okay, the next point is practice, of course. So if you're fairly new to any of the web stuff, I would recommend to actually understand the basics of tracking and putting it into action. So you might want to just open up a WordPress blog or whatever, a little site that you can actually have access to the HTML and try to paste in the Google Analytics code, for example, yourself, or the Google Tag Manager code yourself. So you get a deep understanding of where it's actually placed, and then how it's tracking, because it's JavaScript on a web page, and you need to know your ways around it a little bit, at least from a technical perspective. I think that's a good basic to have. So if you don't have a site or another project that you actually work on right now, then build a little site and maybe do all the advanced stuff with it too. So at Google Analytics, I always think about event tracking or custom variables, custom dimensions, that or changing the code from classic to universal analytics and so on. That's just something that if you don't practice this on your own site, you will never get the feeling on how to instruct a developer to do that, or to then validate the data and know maybe also what is happening there with the code. And there are good tools out there. Look into Chrome and the dev tools, but also the Google Tag Assistant or WASP that I mentioned on the other episode, and give you a good understanding of if your code is firing correctly and so on. And then you can also go to other sites and see how they customize maybe their code. And if you have a site up and running or you have already analytics installed and so on, I would say take a question a day and try to answer it through Google Analytics. And not a question like how many visits did I have yesterday, but to get a better understanding. That's what it's all about. Get a better understanding of your user. So go in and try to ask a question like, I wonder if my users actually look at this page, how long they stay, if they scroll to the end and so on. And you won't be able to answer that all in Google Analytics. And after you find out how to actually track it, then you may have to change your tracking code. And that's what it's all about, to do, to use the tool creatively, know what it's capable of, and then implementing some customizations to it. And that's the advanced stuff of Google Analytics. Everybody will tell you like, oh, I can do my analytics by themselves, but they have no clue about what the capabilities of the tool really are. So you have the chance there with your website to practice that, to take one question a day and say, I want to find this out. Where can I find the data? And really take the time to get accustomed with the interface. I know Google Analytics can be a very overwhelming tool, but if you use it as a question answer tool, that's a really good way to get started. Just ask a question. How can I see only people who came from AdWords? What did they do on our page? And so on. To understand it more in depth. And then when it comes to real questions that you really have, you know your ways around and know if Google Analytics is capable of that or not. Next point I want to make here is get experience. And I mean, if you have practiced a little bit messing around with the code or have your own website and messing around with code, it doesn't substitute like real life experience with a project that you really, really want to push. So when we go from an online marketing perspective, then you have maybe a product or a website that you really want to push, and that is a very real life application of Google Analytics or analytics in general. You would need to control all the channels and find out which one is performing best or worst. And here you have a very good example. And to get the experience in is very important for maybe your company once you work in the online marketing space, or also on the product space. How can I control what features people are actually using or users are using on my website or on my product? How can I evaluate that? So that comes with experience, right? So you need to actually go in and have a real project that you want to push and then custom apply your knowledge of analytics to that project. And that's why I always say analytics consultants have their value out there. Somebody who comes into a company and only does the analytics for the company probably understands the company very well and the structure of it. But an analytics consultant has seen multiple goals and funnels and so on out there. An e-commerce business is different from a lead business to track. A video company is different to a SaaS company to track. So you have these different experiences, and if you're exposed to them, you gain experience and can actually use that knowledge also creatively to customize the website again. And if you're very serious about the experience part and you don't have a big website to work on, you might as well try to get somebody to give you over that data. Most of the people, I tell you, most of the bloggers that you read out there, they don't have a clue what their analytics do. They have all Google Analytics installed, but they don't know what is actually going on. So gaining access to that and heading them up on Twitter or on their blog and just asking them for, hey, can I help you out with your analytics? I'm in the process of gaining more experience. It can be really, really easy. So just try it out to gain more access to bigger sites that have analytics installed. I think with Google Analytics, a good place to start is e-commerce, because e-commerce gives you a very clear conversion goal. But any website out there, how could you apply your digital web analytics skills to that platform. And if you're really in the process of like, I want to be one of the good guys out there in analytics and really want to build up that skill, you may also, a good trick is to work with nonprofits. They have huge traffic because they are nonprofit mostly, and they have that need for analytics, but they don't use it because mostly they wouldn't ever hire somebody to do that. And you can get into these spaces and maybe hit up these big teams that do these IT platforms for bigger nonprofits and ask them if they can, you can help them out with analytics, right? So this is a very good place to also get involved into charities, for example, if you're not already into that. Cool. And the last point I want to make is mastery. So let's say you're already at that stage that you pretty well know your analytics. You know the tool in depth. There's also always in the mastery stage, so to say, there's always a different ways you can go. So first thing I want to explore is like niching down, right? So if you're a digital analyst, you might as well go into one direction of maybe a tool vendor. So Google Analytics is a good tool, or Omniture, or Kissmetrics. There are always tools that you use more and gain experience more in, and you can sell that expertise or apply it to your own platform. So niching down into different directions, there's also, apart from tools, you could also say, hey, I only do AdWords analytics. It's one marketing channel that you can actually go in and optimize. There's so many people doing AdWords optimization out there, writing software for it and so on. That's a very interesting path to go down. But I can think of all the online marketing channels. Oh, I'm a Facebook analyst or whatever, right? Facebook ads analyst and so on. I could find you potential on how to improve your ads and so on. Another point I want to make here is you want to be around your peers, right? So there are conferences out there. There was a major conference just now in London, which I would love to have gone to, where you can find people who do roughly the same stuff and maybe also discuss more the broader and bigger questions of analytics, rather than just how can I measure this and this, but rather how can I use my skills creatively and what is the next step in the digital analytics space to stay at the pulse of it. So there are conferences out there, also organized, there's also a keynote by Google Analytics every year, but there are also associations. And the Web Analytics Association, founded by Jim Stern, offers all these different conferences like the eMetrics Summit or meetups, but it also is a anchor point of staying at the pulse of new tools, new acquisitions, and so on. So you might want to check that out. It was actually founded as a Web Analytics Association. It's now the Digital Analytics Association, and you can find it at digitalanalyticsassociation.org. So you might want to check that out and become a member of it. And they even have a program for becoming a certified web analyst. And that's the next point I want to make. Get certifications. I mean, if you're already very much into one tool, you can get a certification for Google Analytics. You can get certification for Omniture and so on. Because a lot of people can't distinguish between a good web analyst and a bad web analyst, right? These certifications definitely show that you have expertise in the tool and can use the tool to the fullest extent. Okay, to recap just shortly, read, look, and listen up. So there are all these resources out there, use them. Then practice maybe on your own side, or if you don't have one, find a project that actually makes sense for you, that you can push and use your skills of analytics on it. Get more experience by applying these skills to real-time projects and maybe finding a real-time project that has more data than you or your project and apply your skills there. So get the experience in. And if you want to dive into it much, much deeper, you can go the mastery route and sign up to the Digital Analytics association or niche down to a product level, get your certifications, go to the conferences, and be one of the next thought leader out there on the digital analytics space. Okay, let's move on. TT, tool and tip of the week. So my tip of the week here is a Google Analytics tip. They just came out with a nice feature, goal sharing in Google Analytics. You can read up about it in a Lunar Metrics blog that I will link up to. Share your goals in Google Analytics. And this is really great because beforehand there were so many different little plugins that you could put into your browser to copy actually goals to other properties, to other things. But the problem was that they periodically broke when Google Analytics brought out a new design change and so on, because they couldn't parse the data anymore. And so that was a pain in the ass always. And now they have this little share button. If you go to goals in your analytics admin section, there is a little share button and you can share it actually to copy it over to another property or share to a friend if you have a very awesome goal that you have set up. I can foresee that a lot of tool vendors out there, like e-commerce systems, should be doing that, because they can have the right configurations with the right funnels in there and just share the link so people can grab it from there and set it up themselves. And that's a great feature, a little feature that Google Analytics released over the last days. Okay, so I guess this wraps it up with this episode of the Quantified Web Podcast. You can find the show notes, of course, at quantifiedweb.com/learninganalytics. Yeah, thanks for listening. I'm Julian. Till next time. Wow, you've stuck around till the end of this episode. That's so cool. Thanks, but now let us put some data to work. Please head over to iTunes and leave us a review so we can work the analytics in our favor. Thanks.